I can't hold my tongue. These kids are my grandchildren, and you are raising them wrong. They are terrible boys.
Shut up, Chip, or I'll go ape shit on your ass. I'm gonna scissor kick you in the back of the head.
Yeah, turn up the heat.
Go on and get some, boys.
Come on.
I'm 10 years old, but I'll beat your ass. Chip, I'm gonna come at you like a spider monkey.
Like a spider monkey. Go on.
Chip, you brought this on, man.
Greatest generation, my ass. Tom Brokaw is a punk.
What is wrong with you?
Chip, I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew.
I love that.
You gonna let your sons talk to their grandfather like that? I'm their elder.
I sure as hell am, Chip. I love the way they're talking to you. Because they're winners. Winners get to do what they want. Hell, you're just a bag of bones. Only thing you ever done with your life is make a hot daughter. That's it. That's it. That is it.
If we wanted us some wussies, we would have named them Dr. Quinn and Medicine Woman, okay?
I know what you're thinking. Is this the booth? Drafting the circuits? Three-way theater or the Kevin Jackson show? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I kinda lost track myself here on Whoobazoo.com. So, do you feel lucky, punk?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you?
This is blasphemy. This is madness. This is the booth.
Staring down, looking at the blood-stained concrete. You're the dead MC, lying at my feet. You took a 9mm rhyme straight to your mind. Damn, my better split. This is my time, so I make my way up the block. Get to home base and lock that up. Crack the Cavassier and grab the phone. Call one of my troops up. Hope the soldier's homie says, yo, what's up, what's going on? Make it quick, cause I'm trying to get my Stella on. Nigga, your girl, I'm in the... These lyrical assassins tried to pull a hit, and then boom, came a noise from the other room. It was the boys in blue with the SWAT crew. They got us locked up for lyrical murder. It's one of them charges that you never heard of. It's the booth. The booth. The booth. The booth. Yeah, it's the booth. The booth. The booth. Yeah, we're killing all your podcasts like the HIV virus. You want to battle this kid? Huh, don't even try this. Back the up, think again, count to 10. You want to grab that mic just to get done in? It's the booth. The booth. The booth. The booth. Yeah, it's the booth. The booth. The booth. The booth. Yeah, it's the booth.
All right, your boy, Sinister One broadcasting live from the City of Champions. You are listening to The Booth. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got a special guest, but before we get into our special guest and my co-host, I got to thank wrestler Anthony Green, who was on our show last week, Retro AG. Sounds like he had a pretty good event on Sunday. I saw some people tweeting that he's become their new favorite wrestler. And as we said, he's on. He was signed to Evolve, which is like... It's like the understudy of the WWE. WWE actually broadcasts their events on, I believe, Sunday nights. So hopefully we can get Anthony on again. So I want to thank him for coming on the show. We've got a guest tonight, but I'm going to let my host, RSquared, set this up after I let Ken say hello first, because this guy came on here through RSquared this week. And usually when somebody brings a guest on, I like to have the person that brought him on announce him, because that's the best way to do it around here. So, Ken, I'm going to let you say your hellos first.
Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, the Three Stooges.
RSquared, I'll let you introduce our guest before we get into our topics for tonight, and just tell us who we have on with the show tonight on the booth.
Okay, well, welcome to the booth again this week. Glad to have you. Tonight we are joined by special guest John Napolitano, and I'm going to say very little because I'm going to have to wheel out the apology podium because I screwed it up when I introduced him 2 weeks ago to promo this. So what I will say is we are very lucky to have John with us tonight because he can talk about two very different but very interesting issues. One is Major League Baseball, then and now. How about that, John, for not screwing up the dates? Then and now. John, how about this? John could have been an awesome pitcher, but for something that occurred. And but fortuitously, he didn't give up. And John also was an early player in the telecom industry, the wireless industry. And, we've been talking about that on the booth with some of the various mergers and other issues with the telecom business right now. So we are very lucky to have a guest on that can help us out on both of these big issues that we like to talk about. So welcome, John.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I will do my best on the telecom side. I like to call it wireless communications. But we need to correct that record on the baseball side. I believe RSquared, and I don't know what RSquared represents. Rob, explain RSquared.
That's my name.
That's his radio name. Yep.
2 R's.
That's the radio name? Okay, I got it. Okay. If that's the case, then I'd like to be Johnny Knapp going forward.
Johnny Knapp?
Or
Johnny Knapp.
Or Knapp. Just that, you could say Knapp for short. How's that?
Good.
That was my baseball name, Nappy. That's what they called me. No one wanted to say Napolitano, and it barely fit on the back of a jersey. So,
it can't be Nappy if you play in Britain because it means something entirely different.
Yeah.
But
nice.
To clarify, I did not make the major league. I did not make it to the major league. I did try out with the New York Mets. I spent January of 1983 and February of 1983 practicing with the Mets, being scouted by the Mets. And you say, how, January and February. January and February is where baseball players go to their stadiums. And underneath the stadiums, they have facilities. They have pitching mounds, dirt pitching mounds. They have, batting cages. And you get there at noon. So they wrote a letter to my high school. And I was taken out of school about 10:30. I drove to Shea Stadium, and we practiced for 2 months before they left for spring training. So those pitchers are ready to go when spring training comes about. It's not like they're throwing the first ball, for the first time since the prior season. So they're pretty much ready to go at that point in time, pitchers and catchers. And I participated in that. How that all came about, there was a team by the name of the Brooklyn Bonnies. It was the summer that I was going into my senior year of high school, and I played for a scout by the name of Joe Pesh. And Joe Pesh was a scout for the New York Mets, and we were playing the Brooklyn Bonnies, and we were a man short, so Joe had to play first base, all 5'4" of him. And he said to me, John, if you beat them today, you got your shot.
Hold on. I gotta cut you off. You said Joe Pesh?
Yeah, just like the actors.
Yeah, are you still in contact with him?
Joe passed away recently. I have spoken to him recently. He was from Dix Hills, Long Island, New York. I spoke to his son recently, and he sent over a bunch of pictures of me and Tom Seaver and Neil Allen and John Stearns and pictures that his father had taken. I was at the age of 17 and afraid to walk over to Tom Seaver. He had just come back from Cincinnati. That was his first year back from the Cincinnati Reds, and his locker was directly across from mine. And I was a little bit intimidated, but Joe made the introduction, and I took some photos with Tom.
I said that, and we have
that videotape. I still say he was going to beat Bill Buckner to the bag anyway. I don't know if you agree, but Buckner just didn't have the ability at that time. He was,
and that's who I felt should have really taken the blame for that whole downfall. And I felt like Bill Buckner was the scapegoat, and he didn't deserve it.
No, I agree.
And also, it was a bad hop. If you look at the video, that ball took an.
He was there for the celebration. I remember Keith Hernandez in '86, sick as a dog. But when the Mets were going to clinch the NL East, they brought him in for the ninth inning. Same concept, right? They wanted their top guys and their starters to be
crazy. That game wasn't the deciding game of the series.
That's right.
No, Game 6.
It was only Game 6. So everyone forgets the Sox lost 2 in a row because they won Game 7. They still would have won the series.
Yeah, but Game 7 was fait accompli. I mean, I don't think anyone thought for a moment that the Red Sox even had a chance in Game 6. The momentum had changed dramatically at that moment in time. Look, the champagne was ready to be popped. It was already in the playoffs against the Houston Astros. Mike Scott, unbeatable, right? I mean, that was a fun time back then. Like to see my Mets get back. And your Red Sox are on a tear right now.
Yeah, right.
5 in a row.
Yeah, they're pretty much out of it. The
season lasted another 10 months, and they keep doing this. They even wild card. They're 19 games out.
Well, but I look at it. I'm looking at it differently than you. I think they're playing someone from the NL East tonight, aren't they?
I believe so.
I think.
And shame on me for not
pulling it up on my app right now. Let's see. God, I wish I could see anymore. Red Sox are playing the Phillies, so I'd like to see them beat up on the Phillies a little bit.
Oh yeah, go Red Sox.
Yeah. Well, I hate the Phillies for different reasons.
So you were in the MLB for a little stint of time there, and you've been able to see a lot of stories, tell a lot of stories. From here to now, what is your opinion of baseball? I know that there was some drama in this past All-Star game. They felt that they were really trying to sell the league, and then here comes that topic again, but they felt like that the balls were tampered with, and that whoever manufactured the balls were made different, so these guys could really kill the ball at the All-Star game. And I've said this before, there's a lot of things that happen in sports to boost sports, and I was just wondering your opinion on that.
I think offense does boost sports. I think personally, I would love to. I enjoy a 1-0 pitcher's duel over a 12-10 route, a 12-2 route or something like that. Do I think the ball is juiced? Yeah, I mean, the balls are leaving. Balls that I think are off the end of the bat, that would normally be before even the warning track, seem to be flying out of the stadiums lately. Just the increase in home runs, overall, both leagues. Yeah, I think the ball is juiced. Some say it's a little bit smaller. I don't know if that's the case, but it certainly seems to be tracked.
Baseball got incredibly boring to watch, and the reason why is because you could watch a baseball game in maybe 2.5, 3 hours. But then what happened was when you had a very dominant top 3 pitchers pitching, in the 3-game stint. And what these teams all started to do was they waited out the good pitchers. So now they're being patient at the plate. They're running up pitch counts into the 90s or 100s before that relief, which now 4 hours, 5 hours. And I'm like, there's got to be something they can do to just change. There's no reason why anybody should be at a park for a 5-hour game. I was just wondering your thoughts on that.
Moves to speed up the game, right? How many mound visits you can have, how long a pitcher has between pitchers. So I think that the general consensus is, hey, yeah, let's speed up the game, but at the same time, like other sports, let's bring more offense to the game. Think about the '85 Bears. Defense won Super Bowls. Then it became shootouts, and the scores all ran up at times. But I think offense is what puts tushies in the seats at the end of the day, right?
Pitchers.
Look at how the average of each batter increases when he sees a pitcher the first time, the second time, the third time. You remember Vargas? He's with the Phillies now, but he was great, 2-3 times through the lineup. But man, you had to pull him by the 7th inning because when they saw him the 3rd and 4th time, they were hitting him. So these guys, the more pitches they see, the better they're going to be. McNeil is a perfect example of the Mets, right? This kid's been a superstar now for about a year and a half, and he does a great job of deep pitch, 9, 10 pitch, and at times. So it is out of the work. Day and age, you're out there throwing 100. They're protecting these arms. They're pulling them out at 90, 100, 110, and they want them out. We didn't have specialty pitchers in the old days, right? Tug McGraw came in at the end in the 9th inning, and that was it. Yeah. But, now we've got a 7th inning specialist, an 8th inning specialist, and then your 9th inning closer, and it's a completely different game.
Yes.
But let me ask you that. That thing that's really bothered me is one of the things that I found quite annoying in baseball is the over-specialization of pitchers. Like I said, I grew up at the same time you did. You had guys who do a complete game, and maybe you'd bring in a reliever in the 8th or 9th inning to close it out. It'd be one guy, unless he got totally shell-shocked. Do you see any chance of going back to I'm not saying a previous time, but going back to where we did not have this over specialization with regard to the pitching.
Said for any complete, I don't see us going back to that just because we've got too much invested in these guys. The money is too great. They're gonna try to protect them.
It's getting ridiculous because I was a couple weeks ago. I was down in Baltimore visiting some friends, and we took a game in the Camden Yards. And I swear to God, I think in the 8th inning they had 3 pitchers in one inning. And I'm both.
At one time, I remember the list playing, right?
I'm trying to remember. I reason they were fun to watch, and it was
McLean. Yeah. McLean was a 30-game winner at that time.
I'm trying to
the only one.
Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention when I was a kid, but I don't remember anyone talking about a pitch count when I was growing up.
Yeah, it's much more prevalent today than it was. Yeah, you're right.
Because now when I tune into a game, in the old days, when a new pitcher came in, it was win-loss and ERAs.
Yep, that's right. ERAs was the big number.
And when the batter came up, it was, his what he was doing in the game, like 1 for 2 or whatever. Then you had, if you were lucky, you had home runs, RBIs, and his batting average. Right? That was all you knew about the guy. Guarding against a bunt, double play depth, or shading some guy if you knew he was a power hitter to left field. They'd shade him a bit to the left. That was it.
Yeah, or infield in, it's a play at the plate, less than 2 outs and, yep.
Right.
You made a good point there, too. Also, how baseball has changed as far as teams progress. You talked about tracking analytics with the onset of computers, which I want to say came in the early 2000s when they started tracking pitchers and where they pitched and their positioning in the strike zone. It seemed like once that came in, it took off. Now they're tracking hitters' trajectories, and now they know kind of where a player.
I wish as a pitcher I knew that so-and-so couldn't hit a high inside fastball, or so-and-so couldn't hit a low. I mean, that would have been a nice advantage to have. I had to look at their stance, and were they pulling out on the ball? Were they before the person even gets up to the
big fan of the MLB? You follow the MLB. You did a little time in the MLB. I'm going to ask you who your favorite pitcher of all time is.
Tom Seaver. I wore the number 41 my whole life. My phone numbers my businesses were, 41. Everything I did in life was 41. Tom Seaver is sick and ill, and I wish him the best. But not the nicest guy in the world. So that was a bit of a letdown, being 17 years old, your hero being, 20 feet across from you, but didn't come up to you and say hello. Whereas Neil Allen, to give you a different example, I'm on the mound, I'm in my windup, and he, I've got my back to him, and he comes up and he, with his baseball glove, grabs my balls as I'm about to pitch, as I'm in my windup. Why? Because he's trying to make the 17-year-old kid feel comfortable and at ease, where Tom Seaver was, kind of just the opposite. So it was a little bit of a letdown, but I'll still say, during my era, he was a pitcher's pitcher. I followed him as far as, throwing 3/4, and I do believe that gave me longevity, because I played into my 40s, in leagues with younger kids, 28 and over leagues and stuff like that. So I think that helped. I could never get my right knee dirty. Steve was famous for getting so low, and being able to push off that rubber and get his right knee dirty. Couldn't do that. I will tell you a great story. There was a college that was scouting me, Eckerd College in Tampa, and I remember Seaver played against them, and he was pitching, and they were beating up on him pretty bad. I mean, just having their way with him. And then Tom Seaver, he was special. He was one of the greats. Leave it at that.
Well, you know what they say: you should never meet your heroes.
What about
who was the best? I had one more. Who was the best manager of all time?
In 1988, So this is, my baseball career had ended, and I went into the wireless communications business in 1985. I had met a gentleman at Shea Stadium when I was playing Plumber. He was the head of marketing, and he and I had given each other our telephone. And then it was the Mets. They were playing in Philadelphia. Jim, you remember me? I said, Phyllis, you take the call. I'm going to take the call from Davey Johnson. Needed a cell phone. At that time, you remember the portable phone from Wall Street? They called it the brick phone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Remember the brick? Yep.
Oh, I remember. Wow. If you
Yeah.
had the brick, that was a status symbol. If you had the brick back then, as you were hot.
And even more of a status symbol was the slimline brick. So they made that same phone in a slimline version, which was 1988 that it was available. So all our size was that was the year he threw 58 shutout consecutive innings. I don't know if you recall that, but we had played the Dodgers 12 times that year. We had won 11 out of 12. We were definitely destined for the World Series, which was the A's, the Oakland A's at the time, and we ended up losing to them 7 games. Hobbling around the bases, home run. You remember that against Santa Fe?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? But anyway, to go back to Davey Johnson, he was just such a nice guy. And for each and every game, and you saw the hot foots back then, and just can smoke a cigarette when he needed to, and he was a real player's man. That's what they called him back then, and I have a lot of respect for him and the way he handled that team, because he had a lot of that team, Gooden and Eichster, and it wasn't easy to manage a group like that, and I think he did a super job in it. I got to say Bobby Bonds, Barry Bonds, not Bobby Bonds, Barry Bonds. You couldn't get that guy out when he hit 70 some odd home runs that year, and I just said to myself, I looked at him in that batting. I don't know where I would throw a ball to get this guy out. You can't get him out on the inside corner. You can't get him out on the outside corner. High, low. He was just an impossible out. So I'd have to say Bonds.
Nice. Okay.
Cool. That would be my pick.
Great answer. Go ahead, RSquared.
Oh, I was just going to take it back to the classic Mets that, you met some of those guys when you were working out with them. Yeah. And, you mentioned Tom Seaver as some background, and you should work. And these were below the Mets or the National League even. But for a lot of baseball fans and certainly Mets fans, Bud Harrelson
I've ever met in my life. As a matter of fact, years after I had, played at Shea with him, I saw him as a coach as the Long Island Ducks. Went to a game, and he remembered me and said hello, while I was in the stands and all of that. So, Bud Harrelson, just a great guy. The game, understood pitching. Hands would break from glove, the ball from the glove in your windup. That was a big teaching moment in my life.
Where you had players like that, and how do you compare? Not the greats, but just the average players, from that era to this era. Are they as respectable? Are they more respectable, less respectable? Just how do you compare the eras as far as the type of people playing? Forget just the stats.
Well, I haven't met too many of the players. I was fortunate enough to get on the field at Marlin Stadium and meet some of the Mets years ago. And they all seemed so nice and respectful. Everyone came up to us. That was the time when we signed Cespedes. It was the year we signed Cespedes. And even he, as big as what a superstar during that 2015 season, I think he carried us basically. Now go out with him. She is dating someone from the San Francisco Giants. But yeah, I mean, they seem. Look at Alonso. This kid got 40 home runs, and he is so down to earth. He gets the crowd involved. That smile that he has. He's accessible to all the newscasters. I'm impressed. I'm sure you have.
Let's see, we're 6:30.
Yeah, we got to move.
We got to move on to this other topic that we really wanted to talk about. And we got to thank some people in chat. Eric, my man Eric, is up in Canada, listening from Canada. What's going on, Eric? Paul Forrest, again, is chiming in. He puts a lot into our chat. He's asking questions and things like that. Come and go. A lot of people don't realize that there's still really only the big three, because Boost and some of these smaller companies really are underneath the umbrella of the major corporations. So with this merger of T-Mobile and Sprint, you have Boost, and I think it's Cricket, or I forget, or Metro. Boost and Metro fall into these two giants. So the question is how is this merger going to be handled? And it's just a big thing. And I myself, I don't agree. I'm really surprised at the fact that the feds allowed the two biggest mobile superpowers to merge. Now, my cell phone service, actually, I jumped on Xfinity. Xfinity 2 years ago began their own mobile phone service, and I'm no surprise, Bill. That
Sprint was making, whether you approve the merger or not. I don't approve the merger. Sprint was quick to say it's going to happen because we're going to go out of business. You're only going to be left with three, so you through. And you mentioned Metro PCS, and you long their prepaid name.
Thank you. Yes.
You can. Yeah. So AT&T system. And you're under Cricket, but you're using the AT&T system, so your coverage is going to be the same. Metro PCS is owned by the largest provider of prepaid services. Okay, so they've got over 10,000 points of distribution, meaning stores throughout the nation. That's far superior to that of any of the other prepaid carriers. Operating or selling off the prepaid part. And then there's going to be there's a lot of smooth merger for them. Do I think prices are coming down? No, prices are not going to. Verizon and AT&T are going to keep their prices exactly where they are today. Their preferred stock, they're paying out, a 6%. AT&T's paying out a 6% dividend. They're not going to change that, but by changing the ARPU, the average revenue per unit. Meaning right now the average bill is $60 for AT&T. That's not going to come down. But what my bet is that T-Mobile will go up. So does that hurt the consumer? Yeah, a little bit, right? Because they're going to pay a little bit more. But you're going to get a lot more services. 5G is going to launch. It already has in certain markets for AT&T, for certain customers, business customers, what have you. That's the future of wireless. The solutions that come along with 5G. But I think we'll be fine with the three carriers plus some local carriers in other regions of the country. Plus what we call, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, finish up what you say. I want to hear what you have to say.
I was going to say, and then we have MVNOs. We have virtual carriers who white label. Panasonic is a perfect example of a company. They call it P180. They're an MVNO. They don't own the system. They don't own the cell sites. They're utilizing other people's cell sites, but the bill comes from Panasonic, and they work on a smaller margin than a carrier would. But you've got those players as well. So there is competition out there that you may not be aware of, especially in the business sector. Not so much more in the consumer sector, but in the business sector where there is more competition here in this country and outside of this country.
Now, I mentioned that I'm on Xfinity Mobile, and I believe Xfinity Mobile jumped on. They've got some deal where they jumped in on the AT&T cell towers to help boost their access and signal. What have you heard about? It's because when they jumped in, their numbers for the last few years have been so good. They were talking about the fact that they broke subscriber records, and it's been doing very well for them. What are your thoughts on Xfinity jumping into this mobile?
Well, they're doing it as an MVNO, right? So they're reselling on the AT&T system. The bill is coming from them, right? But they're using the AT&T system, their cell sites. They're a brand name, Xfinity is a brand name, and they have the capability of bundling products, and that's where where this is all going. I mean, 5G, you're going to bundle your products. You're going to have smart home sites. So the way this has been engineered is completely different, but it's going to be It'll revolutionize the industry and how we do business. But yes, bundling like Xfinity has done, you're going to see a lot of that, and hopefully that will save us money in our overall bill of various different products.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask, obviously, very interesting discussion of the mergers and all that, but I think, to me, the biggest concern in wireless right now is the concerns we have over the 5G and technology from the Chinese company Huawei. Are you up on that, John? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think are you tracking the whole concern with letting Huawei into the market?
Listen, we all heard about them. Them putting chips into the phones and being able to listen to our conversations and data and what have you. I'm not so concerned about it now that we're so aware of it, and that we're utilizing them more for the system itself and not the phones. I'm not so sure you're going to see Huawei phones being sold in AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile stores, but they're getting involved more with the infrastructure. And I think we're aware of their trickery and what they've done in the past, and hopefully we can stop that from happening. But
nice.
we do need them to get to launch 5G in the time period that we want to launch 5G.
And what is that? What is that time period you feel is sufficient? You talking 2 to 3 years, 3 to 5?
No, you're seeing it now. So AT&T is like, for instance, in New York, they are doing beta tests right now with their business customers. Mm-hmm. So if you have a consumer account, you're not on it. But if you are a business account, I don't know, make up a New York company, but whatever that company may be, you can be on the 5G network testing it for them right now. So you're starting to see it launch. I'm actually opening some AT&T stores now as we speak, and I'm preparing for 5G, which I think is going to be fourth quarter going forward. We don't have too many phones. Samsung has one that has 5G capability, and then you've got Apple with 5G capability. But you're going to see all the phones. If you want to certify them on the networks, they're going to have 5G built into it. Now, who set themselves best for? Which carrier has set themselves up best for 5G? In my opinion, that's AT&T.
Nice.
With the acquisitions of Turner Broadcasting and Direct TV, and now I don't know. I hear there's some rumblings with Dish Network and what have you. There's a lot going on, and you know what? As a sports fan, as we all are, I live in Florida, but my football team is the Jets, and I have not been able to watch the Jets unless they're playing Miami, right here in the state of Florida, because you have to have Direct TV, and where I am, I can't have a Dish. Well, guess what, guys? No more Dish.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, we put it in our house, and we've got Direct TV, so we can all watch our football teams.
Bundle is nice because I have Xfinity cable service, and my phone is my mobile service is bundled in at the one flat rate. But it is a great thing. But yeah, there's just so much changing. All these streaming services are taken away from networks, and you're hearing, like, I know Direct TV, they were without. We had people who I don't know if they're still without, but they were without CBS there for a little while because they couldn't get their act together with an agreement. So they had lost CBS from there for a while. And I believe Dish also lost like AMC and something else. Are you familiar with some of these things that go on?
Well, it's interesting because I think last week AT&T inked a deal with CBS.
Yes, and they did for a while.
Right? Yeah.
Yep, because they were not being broadcast. People were peed off. Football season's on the way, and that's how this whole crazy thing with this streaming. Like I'm not a fan of CBS right now because CBS has got this thing where in order for you to watch some of their shows now, you have to pay for the CBS Access, which is granted it's $4.99 a month for me to see Star Trek if I want to see it. But my feeling is I'm already paying cable, who's already paying you to have CBS on the cable network. Why should I have to pay CBS Access to access the shows that I miss? And I find that to be very unfair. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that. I feel like it's double dipping.
It sounds like it. Let's see where this all goes. But I think that it's going to be good for the consumer. I think that, like I said, I think that AT&T seems to have the edge right now. I think that there's going to be a lot of fumbling going on with the merger of T-Mobile and Sprint, right? So that's not easy. You're talking about T-Mobile, who has a GSM network, right? And then you've got You've got Sprint, who's CDMA. Two different networks completely. GSM was your standard 86% of the world was covered by GSM. CDMA was more of a North America system code. It's called Code Division Multiple Access. That's what it stands for. And you're going to have to merge. Every one of those customers that's on Sprint is going to have to change their phone because they're going to have to now have a phone that's going to have to have a GSM phone. So the retailers are going to love it because they get to upgrade every single Sprint customer to a new phone, which is always a fun time. Same thing with 5G. We're all going to have to go out and get new phones. We're all going to have to upgrade, right? And have that band in there for us to pick up that 5G.
Yeah, let me just ask you.
Well, I'm still squeaking it out with my iPhone 6s Plus, but I'm at that point.
Is this a scam? Because I got a 4G phone right now, and it works great. Am I being scammed to get the new 5G upgrade? Because I got Verizon, I got Samsung. There's no way that Verizon is giving me a new 5G phone for free. So I know I have to pay for it. But is this just
Yeah. There'll be a phone for free. There always is. It might be LG. It might be, there'll be something out there. Right. It's not going to be the phone that you want, right? So what they're going to do is they're going to give you a $30 a month lease. Then, you're not going to be signing a 2-year contract anymore with the phone company. We don't do that anymore. Now we're locked into a lease. And they're hoping that 2-year lease, you upgrade every year into a new phone, whether it's the new iPhone or the new Samsung or what have you. And by the way, guys, don't go for the iPhone 11. Wait for the one after that. That's going to revolutionize. That's going to be a whole new phone.
The 12?
The 12. I don't know if it's going to be called the 12, but yes, that phone will be the phone to have. The 11 is going to be just like the 10. So you're not going to see much of a difference, but the 12 is going to be something, from what I understand, is going to be something very special.
I'm going to listen to what you're saying. I'm going to squeak out my 6S Plus for maybe another 2 years, dude, if I can.
Well, and I'll send in updates to the booth as I get them. How's that?
Cool.
Give you guys the edge.
All right,
that'd be awesome. You want to hang on? You want to hang on with us while we get into our other topics?
Love to.
Okay,
Love
cool.
to. Absolutely. Thank you.
we got Johnny Knapp hanging out with us, and we're going to get into our regular topics. He's going to hang out with us, and we're going to continue the show. We're definitely going over tonight because he was a great, great guest. I want to thank him for coming on. Now we've got some great stuff to talk about, so we can get into our first booth of the night. It's the local national news booth. The MBTA out by, Ken, Orange Line goes out your way. Brand new Orange Line cars. They're sleek. They're sexy. Passengers have been taking selfies all week on the new Orange Line cars. Have you been able to ride one yet?
No, I have not, but I did see them. They brought them out by Oak Grove just to show people. They'd actually.
Really?
Yeah, you weren't allowed. They hadn't put them in service yet, but they just wanted to show, kind of a show off, saying, "Hey, this is our new model."
Oh yeah,
coming in. They look really, really nice, and I've been riding the Orange Line for over 20 years, and I like to joke that there are people that were born the year these cars were introduced can probably get their Social Security checks by now.
Well, actually, the last time they got new cars was when they built that corridor that ran along the commuter rail, and that was the last time they got Orange Line cars because they didn't want crappy Orange Line cars on that brand new corridor that they put in. So they got new trains, and that was the last time they got Orange Line cars, I believe. And that was cool. Yeah,
that was 30 years ago. But, and as a guy who uses the Orange Line a lot because I live north of Boston, and I refuse to drive into Boston unless I have to. Mm-hmm. And because the Orange Line goes right into downtown Boston.
Yeah.
Those cars have been showing their age, and they're real uncomfortable. They do not have any shocks, and the braking is – it's like nails on a blackboard. So I'm very excited about that. Now, how long cars stay nice, that's another story.
So that was our big local news. And our national news, Elizabeth Warren, she's out on her presidential campaign trail. She apologized for her past comments about her Indian heritage, which she's really trying to clear up and put behind her as she makes her run for presidency. You know what? I can't hate her. I mean, maybe you should have done this a long time ago, but I think maybe strategically – maybe this is the right time to apologize and get that out there so it's not brought up. The funny thing was, I was surprised is we didn't get one tweet, if I'm not mistaken, from our President Trump about her apologizing. Did any of you guys see anything from President Trump?
No, he didn't, because that would assume that he's paying attention to anything else but himself.
Do you think that was a strategic thing? Do you think they told him do not tweet or say anything about this? Because
because first of all, he wouldn't care, and the problem is Fox News didn't cover it, and that's why he doesn't know about it, because he listens to Fox News. The moment Fox
and I
News
believe he had
about
a world leader in today, didn't he, guys? Didn't he have a world leader at the White House today? I think he was a little tied up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure who it was.
Yeah, but that never stops him. I mean,
I was just going to say, he says some of his most inappropriate things when he's entertaining world leaders, which is, it's really embarrassing. I mean, you can't even, sit there with some important person in the White House without doing it. But if you guys remember, just the other day in his last rally, he went after, he said, and I did the whole Pocahontas thing, and I hurt her, but I did it too soon. I'm going to have to bring it back. Remember? That was the big quote from his last rally from a couple of days. So he's all over it still.
Nice. So, Viana Marie, she put in there that T-Mobile offering, going back to the T-Mobile phone stuff, she says T-Mobile is offering Amazon Prime their streaming services. Excellent. She's right. A lot of these companies are getting that upper hand by getting these exclusive contracts with some of these streaming services. I think, T-Mobile.
Let me, if you don't mind, let me just jump in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quickly.
Because you know more about it than us.
Yeah, the test was actually, so remember, T-Mobile owns Metro PCS, and the test and they gave them the exclusive rights, but they have to hit certain goals in order to keep those exclusive rights. And basically what they asked was Metro PCS stores to sell Amazon and Google. So Amazon, you got a free Amazon account if you chose a plan at $50 or greater. So you mentioned you were all in at 45. You could be all in at 50. So that's, unlimited voice, data, and text at $50, and you receive a free Amazon account. Okay. Then if you jump to 60, you received a free Google account, which really was a Google Cloud, like an iCloud, where it would save your data, right? You don't really have it with Android phones. So this was the answer to that. Now, and that's how it came to play. They started it through Metro. Now you're seeing it through T-Mobile.
Nice. Good stuff. Great. I'm good. Man, we really paid off having you on. You were able to answer some stuff for us there.
Damn right.
Also,
I was a Metro dealer when all this took place, so I had a little background in it.
So if you guys are watching the show on Facebook, you see Chick-fil-A. All four of these fast food companies have now brought attention to their chicken sandwich over a simple Twitter war. And regardless of who wins, a lot of people didn't even know Boston Market had a chicken sandwich. Now people know. I might go down and even try it. So it's a win-win how social media has changed in our phones. You see it, right, John? I mean, Johnny Knapp is in this business, and it's a great form of just being viral media, viral promotion. We used to call this guerrilla promotion, but guerrilla promotion is really something going viral, correct?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't know if it's good or bad. I don't know if the old days where we all came home and ate dinner with mom and dad at 6 o'clock at night, and there were no phone calls and no computers to deal with at night. We sat around as a family. I don't know which days are better. You guys, everyone will have their own opinion.
Yeah, I'm
We-
sorry. I think we're getting over-programmed. And I hate to tell you, Keith, I cannot believe you did not know they had chicken sandwiches, because I'm a huge Boston Market fan.
They got I actually
got the Carver.
Oh, that's right. I did. Right. That's what it's called, the Carver.
The Florida guy knows that.
You're right, the Florida guy. And they used to be called Boston chicken, if you remember back in the day.
That's right, yep.
I really don't think this is changing it, because I'm afraid that there's a lot of people out there who live off their phones, and there's a vast majority of us who don't. Look, I love my phone to understand me, but I'm not getting involved in a freaking Twitter war over a freaking sandwich. This is just another aspect of how marketing is evolving.
Yes, it is. It's crazy.
Print media, then radio, then television, and now this. So
yeah, and I find it very interesting.
Grow up.
And also national news, in the last 3 weeks since the Dayton, Ohio mass shootings, the feds have now thwarted 3 possible mass shooting plannings. One of those, the shooter was an 18-year-old white male, also in Ohio. He had 25 guns and 10,000 rounds in his bedroom. His plan was to shoot up a gay bar at a Planned Parenthood facility. The fact that they've now thwarted 3 goes to show you that when you do justice and you do your due diligence of monitoring and watching and calling when you think you might know something, I think even though we had these 3 horrible tragedies, these mass shootings, it did open people's eyes up to people and say, hey, this kid's kind of strange. This kid has been doing things just like that. Maybe I should call and say something. I'm going to go right around the horn real quick, guys, and think if you guys think this is what's happening now. People are kind of opening their mouths on people who they could be a threat. And how many times have we seen these mass shootings? And mostly 80% of the time, people always say, yeah, he was that off kid, or he was that kid that did this, or, we just found out that this other kid here, he had a hit list and a rape list, and he should have never been able to get a gun. So I'm just going to go around the horn real quick. We've got this extra person, John, with us. I'll start with John.
I think we're much more aware of, because of all the shootings, of what's going on, and we're certainly thinking twice about it when we go out to a Walmart, or when we go out to a movie theater, or when we go out to a concert, right? So I think that because it's on people's minds, hopefully they're bringing this to the authorities, to their attention when they see someone that might be not right in certain ways, or they see guns or this or that. I think that's a good thing, and I hope it continues.
Squid.
But at the end of the day, is that the final answer, guys, or do we need gun reform? Do we need to change some of the policies? Do we need background checks for everyone? Do we need
deeper background checks? I think is a must. Deeper background checks. We've had 2 shooters where if they were able to check their school records, these boys would have never been able to get a gun. But because school records are protected, because they're minors, they slip past those checks. And I think we first of all, we need deeper background checks. And I'll let us.
Trump was for it a week ago. Now he's against it today. Now he's saying
because the NRA told him to be against it.
Yeah, exactly. Wayne Lafayette gave him one too many phone calls. He said, "Okay, I'll change my mind."
RSquared, your face. I see you want to add in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and we've had this debate several times on the show, including a couple of weeks ago in our special edition after the shootings. There's no doubt that we have to take very seriously the overwhelming need for additional gun safety legislation. And you're talking about legislation that 90% of the country favors. You're talking about legislation, including an assault weapons ban, that a majority of Republicans favor. And you're talking about background checks that a majority of NRA members favor. So these aren't the most controversial things, and yet we can't find the willpower, not we, but in the Senate, they can't find the willpower to pass even something as popular as extended background checks that have 90% approval throughout the country and the NRA membership. So that's just an awful statement of where we are today. But your question started with, what do we do about spotting these things and notification? I think that's actually a very difficult question, because when one of these things happen and the media covers it and the law enforcement gives the briefing and they talk about how, well, there were these signs and people said he had problems and all that. So every one of us that's on the outside looking into that situation says, oh my God, I would have said something, or why didn't anybody say anything? And I think the answer is that people do have to speak up and say something. But put yourself in a situation where it's somebody that you know, somebody you work with, somebody that you go to school with, somebody that you go to church or synagogue with, somebody that, whatever, that you see on an everyday basis. So they have some problems, but yet because you see them every day, it's not as easy to pick out somebody that, that might be escalating to a point where they're making threats, incredible threats. So I do think it's hard for individuals to step up when it's somebody that they know. So my answer to the question, in my view, is I think that people do have to pay attention. I think that people do have to, I'll use this phrase, I don't like it, but err on the side of making a report, because lives may depend on it. And if it's not, if the person really wasn't a threat, then it shouldn't be that much of an inconvenience to have them asked a few questions. Maybe a red flag law kicks in if we ever pass one, and and we can prevent something. And it should be a not too meaningful intrusion on that person's privacy or whatever if law enforcement handles it right. The one thing that we have to be careful of is you can't use this as an excuse to go swatting people, and I don't like that term either, but that's the term of art that's being used, and that is sort of a reckless way of getting at somebody where you make people make these phony 911 calls and get SWAT to report to somebody's home or office. You remember that? That's it's not funny. That's a huge risk of somebody getting hurt or killed. It's a huge waste of resources of law enforcement and others. So I think we need to be careful that we don't get into some form of sanctioned swatting somebody because everybody just says, well, I'm told to report, so I'm going to make a report. I don't think we should go that far. So there does need to be some personal accountability, and people do need to make an assessment, and we're not always going to get it right as human beings. I just think that people do need to be vigilant, and they do need to err on the side of telling law enforcement when they have a concern, a valid concern.
Nice, guys. Good stuff. Ken, did you want anything to add to that real quick?
Absolutely. And I think the point we're all missing is the fact that up until recently, law enforcement did not take these mass shootings seriously. The simple reason was they were usually done by white suburbanites or white working-class people, and there was not a high priority to look at these white suburbanites with lots of guns. That has changed. I think after the El Paso shooting, the shooting in Ohio, in Dayton, it's now changed. I think law enforcement has finally got the message that, the terrorist activity is not going to be Mohammed. It's going to be Al. Quote, I can't remember his name, the black comedian, who's the one who said, "I'm not worried about Al Qaeda. I'm worried about Al Crack." I think that's changed. Now, when police get messages, hey, there's a guy with 200 rifles and 10,000 rounds of ammunition, they're taking that much more seriously. Thank God. Okay. 200 shootings, but just to give you an idea of how much 10,000 rounds of ammunition is. The maximum you can hold an AR-15, I think, is 20 rounds, right, Rob?
They've got all kinds of these expanded magazines now, but in traditionally speaking, the extended magazine was about 20 or so. Okay. But now they've got these things where you can put 100 in there, if you remember from one of the recent shootings. Right.
So let's take the 100-round super magazine, just to give you an idea. This man had 10,000 rounds of ammunition, and he had one of those extended rounds, which should be send up red flags. That means he had 100 magazines. RSquared, when you were in the military, how many magazines did you go out on patrol with?
2.
Thank you. He's in a combat zone, and he probably had the 20-round magazines, right?
10. I had 20 bullets with me at all times when I was.
He had 10. This is a man who was in a war zone, in full battle dress with Kevlar, right? You got a helmet on.
Yep, everything. Yep.
And you only carried around 20 rounds of ammunition, and you probably also had a sidearm, right?
That was for my sidearm.
So someone who helps Hollywood out with war movies, man, they really lie, huh? You only went out into the field with 20 rounds. Most movies, it seems like guys have an endless amount of bullets in these war movies that we watch in Hollywood.
That's not realistic. Now, obviously, there are people who carried a heck of a lot more than I did based on what they were doing and what type of
right. Oh yeah, yeah.
But you asked me what I carried, and I carried 20 when I was in the middle of a war zone in Fallujah. So
right. So think about that. This guy is carrying 20. He's got a sidearm with 20 rounds of ammunition. He's in Fallujah. This guy is in whatever. He's bleep fuck. Pardon my French. And he's got 10,000 rounds of ammunition.
You bleeped the wrong part of that.
Yeah, I know. He's bum bleep. Okay, sorry. So this is the kind of thing that I think law enforcement is now starting to pay attention to, and this is what we should. And I'm sorry, I'm a firearms owner, okay? I own 4 pistols and a shotgun. I think as a responsible firearms owner, I should have my guns registered, I should pay insurance on them, and I should require to be licensed, which I am. I have no problem with that. My car is licensed, my car is registered, I pay insurance every year. Is anyone here doesn't pay insurance for their car?
No. I have to.
I've killed a hell of a lot less people with my car than somebody's paid with their firearms.
Crazy stuff. So let's move along. We still got Johnny Knapp on with us. Let's head into the sports booth real quick. Sports booth, the Pats beat the Titans in Week 2 preseason. Not that really big of a deal other than this kid Chase Winovich out of Michigan, who RSquared told us to keep our eye on when the Patriots draft him. This kid looks like he's going to be the real deal. This kid looks like he's going to have his name said a lot. They gave him number 50. For those who don't remember who wore number 50, Mike Vrabel and Rob Ninkovich. So he's got some big shoes to fill. Week 3, Josh Gordon was activated. Julian Edelman was activated. Julian Edelman will be in this game this week. And again, guys, when a reporter is going to get it, when Belichick says something, you don't show up to press conferences and ask him the same question, or you are going to get obliterated. Steve Burton, a great reporter, a great guy. I would say he's kind of a friend of Belichick, but Steve Burton, I think, was forced into a situation, and he had a very awkward moment. For those who watched the Pats game this past week, Belichick came on after halftime, and Steve Burton walked up to him and asked him if he had anything to add about the statement that he released on Josh Gordon. Belichick's face said it all, and he pretty much said, what you read is what I gave, and I'm not giving anything else. And pretty much that was it. So Belichick is already in full season mood. The NFL hired rapper Jay-Z just days after discussing the bill, and just days after they signed him for picking the talent for Super Bowls. It is discussed that he may become the first black owner in the NFL, which started this other whole debate because Jay-Z is good buddies with Colin Kaepernick, who does not have a job in the NFL. Kaepernick kind of threw some shade his way, but Jay-Z's thing is that in order for us to recognize the issue that Kaepernick was trying to bring, we need to move forward. I see this whole thing, even though a lot of people are calling Jay-Z a sellout, I think what you're going to see here is Jay-Z is going to get himself a team, and he's going to bring in Colin Kaepernick to try out his quarterback. If Kaepernick makes it, he makes it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But it will shut this whole debate up and shut everybody else up. And I'm just going to say this, and being a black man, all these people who are talking all this stuff about Colin Kaepernick and all this stuff, when Colin Kaepernick was going through this whole thing, he was already demoted as a bench player, number one. And number two, he wasn't that very good of a quarterback. He was just like RG3, a fade and a flash in the pan. He wasn't that good. His numbers weren't great. And I don't think in today's NFL, Colin Kaepernick is going to make it as a starting quarterback. I don't know if you guys want to add to that real quick.
Well, I was just going to ask you a quick question on Jay-Z. So if this all plays out, does that make him a minority owner?
Throwing a yellow flag.
I didn't want to take that joke.
Sportsmanlike conduct. Punting after the pass.
That was awesome, RSquared, because yes, it would. Johnny Knapp, anything to add to that?
No, you can't follow that with anything. I'm sorry.
I know. He just close. Yeah.
John,
parents, my mother was every double-headed.
Sir.
but I was born in '65, and in 1973 the Mets were in the World Series, and the Yankees sucked until 1977 when they took Reggie Jackson and Catfish Hunter and all these names. It became a great team again. My son's the same thing, and he was born in '91. Who was great in 2000? Well, it was the Mets and the Yankees, but my son was a catcher, and the Mets had Piazza. So I believe that's how it all happens. It's when you start the sport, call it 8 years old. That's whoever's a hot team is. That's who you're going to gravitate to. That's my opinion.
I'm the son of two Brooklyn Dodger fans. My grandfather was a Brooklyn Dodger fan, then a Met fan, and I played in minor leagues. When I played Little League in the minor leagues, my team was the Red Sox. I actually played on the Red Sox in the minors. Of course, it was the Little League minors, but no, there is no forgiveness for being a Yankee fan. We have disowned people in my family for being a Yankee fan.
Well, you know what? That might be the only city in the country where that holds true. I can understand that. Boston Yankees, Babe Ruth. I mean, there's just too much history. That may take precedence. That's why.
All right.
Yeah,
well, let's move on.
But the question was, can your Jets split with the Pats this year?
Yes.
Yeah. You got a great quarterback.
They split with the Pats always split with Miami and the Jets. That's what they do every year.
Can the Jets make any kind of a run though? Because the Patriots have no competition. They haven't for years in that division. Can the Jets give them some competition, make them earn it?
I think so. Le'Veon Bell, Darnell. I think you got a good offensive line to protect him this year. I think you do. I think you give him some competition.
You heard it on the booth, folks.
We'll see. Gronk. What's the answer to Gronk? Give me that.
Gronk wasn't Gronk for the last couple of years. I mean, I love Gronk. I got a man crush on the boy. Okay, but the last couple of years, he wasn't the Gronk we knew.
But he made a key drive in the Super Bowl, and that's all that mattered was that key drive, and that was a big one. So
he was Gronk when you needed him to be Gronk. That's when he was Gronk. He wasn't Gronk 24/7, right? He wasn't Gronk every game. But when you needed him to be Gronk, he was there for you.
That's right.
Now you don't have him. That's a big loss. What was the percentage of passes that went to Gronk as opposed to the other receivers on the Patriots? I'd like to know the answer to that.
Well, it was him and Edelman who were like the I think if you look at the amount of who caught how many passes. It's Gronk and Edelman, and then everybody else on the entire Patriots team.
Right, and when Edelman was out for that 4-game suspension, Gronk was that lead guy until he got hurt, and then right now it looks like this with Josh Gordon back, Edelman back, and this kid that they picked up that was undrafted. This kid here, he's on fire. I think the tight end position is not going to be a worry if this can work out the way it does with the wide receiving core. If everything goes the way it does, because you're going to have to be defenses are going to have to be honest. And if Josh Gordon is on his game and he's playing, you're going to have to double cover Josh Gordon, and then you're going to have to cover Edelman in the slot, which is going to open up a lot of man-on-man with this new kid, this rookie who's fast, he's tall. The question is can he break cornerbacks and DBs and get open? And I think that's where the threat's going to be. We'll see. Go ahead, Ken.
No, I agree, but I just want to say it's still preseason, and talk to me at week 3.
Exactly. Yeah. And let's see. Week 3 of preseason. That's the Patriots are putting everybody out in the field, and we'll see that happens. The entertainment booth is coming up right now. We've got some breaking news in the entertainment booth, and I'll just play a little breaking news. Breaking news in the entertainment booth. Matrix 4 has been announced with Lana Wachowski at the helm. For those who don't remember, Lana Wachowski, one of the Wachowski brothers, went and had a gender change. So it's now Lana. We need to respect that. She will be at the helm of Matrix 4. And we have the return of Keanu Reeves as Neo. We also have the return of Carrie Ann Moss as Trinity. I am very excited. Matrix
Okay, hold on a second. All right.
Go ahead.
Granted, I'm suffering from CRS, can't remember bleep, and I got early onset Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But in the third Matrix movie, everyone remember the climax? Neo died.
No,
yes, he did.
If you stayed till the end of the film, you saw that he was not dead.
Oh, come on.
You saw that Neo was not dead. So what they made, this is sometimes why you got to stay till the end of the credit, all the way to the end. It's like a Marvel movie. You got to stay till the end, Ken.
Stay till the end. He's dead.
Hobbs and Shaw got knocked off by Good Boys, which was the #1 movie. I'm going to have to go check that out. But Good Boys is the first highest grossing comedy of the year at $21 million. And also entertainment news, I got to give a shout out to my son Terrell, who attended the Rainbow Six Siege tournament in Raleigh, North Carolina. And RSquared told us in the chat before we went live earlier today, he watched some successor to Sharknado called Zombie Tidal Wave. RSquared, I got to hear a little bit about this. You actually told us to DVR it.
Yeah, because you're not going to waste time watching it live. It's something you watch when you're doing chores. But I think everybody knows that they made 6 Sharknado movies before they finally finished
5.
No, it was 6.
6.
It was 6.
6?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was 6.
And and so it had its following, its cult following or whatever you want to call it. They were absolutely terrible movies, but people loved to watch, and celebrities were making cameos in them.
The first one was awesome. The other 5 sucked.
Yeah, of course. And people would make cameos. But anyway, the last one was the last one. They killed that off. Well, Ian Ziering is now making a new series that's sort of the successor to the cult favorite of Sharknado called Zombie Tidal Wave, and it premiered Saturday night on Sci-Fi. And so I taped it, and while I was sitting here doing my homework, I watched it the other day. And it was it was as bad as the Sharknado movies as far as terrible writing, terrible acting, but it was the plot line was funny, just like Sharknado. You know, it's outrageous. You've got a tidal wave full of zombies. You know, I mean, it's funny. It's funny.
That actually makes more sense than Sharknado.
Yeah. Johnny Knapp sounds like he wants to chime in here on
I was just going to say, I was just going to jump in and say, you know, as far as cult films are concerned, let me know when the Rocky Horror Picture Show Part 2 comes out, because
well, they did. It's called Shock Treatment. They did a sequel. It's called Shock Treatment, and it was awful.
Paul Forrest is in our chat, and he actually mentioned a movie that's under the radar. That's another cult classic. He said Tremors is at 6 films too. Tremors, which was a Kevin Bacon film, a great film, is, by the way. And you're right. We're right. He's right. It's at 6 films in that franchise already, which is
no. But here's the thing: nothing is ever going to beat Sharknado, because nothing is going to ever have a guy cutting himself out from the stomach of a shark with a chainsaw.
I haven't seen one. I haven't seen one Sharknado yet.
Oh, you got
to. You have to.
Oh, it is so ridiculous. First of all, the script is god awful.
Yeah.
The effects are ludicrous. I mean, honestly, you know, Massasoit Community College Film School could do a better job on the.
That was the whole point.
Yeah. Okay, and I know we're all supposed to suspend disbelief, but this requires you to get a lobotomy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But guys, I will say, and I told you this too, last week we talked about the big premieres of coming out, and I went and saw 47 Meters Down. We talked about that last week on the booth, and I had to go see it because that's, and it was interesting. I won't give anything away, but for anybody who liked the first one, this one will not disappoint you. A little bit in the middle got a little bit crazy to follow, but it had a really good ending like the first one did. I would recommend it if you like that genre of movie. It was actually pretty entertaining. And it's only 90 minutes long.
I'll have to check it out. So continuing on with our last bit of booth, entertainment booth, maybe I'm going to ask Johnny Knapp, maybe if you can chime in on this, because a lot of people pirate movies and watch movies over their mobile devices through these certain websites. One of the major websites of pirated media was shut down today. And I think it's absolutely stupid, too. You name your website Vader Streams after a movie character, and they were known for getting things like Game of Thrones before they were released on HBO. They were getting movies before they were released in theaters, and people were going on this site, and Hollywood was able to do what they need to do. The site has been abruptly shut down. So if you're on your phone or on your iPad or whatever, you cannot access Vader Streams and watch these pirated movies anymore. And I always tell people all the time, do not watch this stuff, because I've had friends, and I'm not going to lie, I've had 2 friends who were involved in this situation where they were watching or downloading pirated movies, and guess what? They were caught. I had a guy who lost his access to cable for 6 months because their cable company was approached about what he was doing and what he was streaming, and they gave up his IP. Everything you do online is attached to an IP. I'm going to let Johnny Knapp talk about it. He's in this business. He knows the field. Everything is registered. Everything has a track to it. And a lot of people don't seem to realize that. And you could be – anybody who's been on this Vader Streams could be held liable or charged for whatever they access, correct, Johnny? If they really wanted to make a big stink out of it, Hollywood.
I would assume so. This is not my area of expertise, and I got to tell the truth. I've never downloaded one of those pirated movies, so
neither have I.
I heard the quality. Isn't very good. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, no, you're right. And what it is some people are just too cheap. I mean, some of the stuff is good quality. Some of the stuff is good quality, but I can tell you right now, I'm a big movie fan. I like IMAX, so you're not going to catch me getting Avengers Infinity War, 2 weeks before it releases with the little thing down below, and I'm not going to buy it from the Chinese guy in the barbershop to see someone getting up to get popcorn during the best scene of the movie. You know what I'm saying? So as far as that goes, I'll let you guys add in on that. Ken, you got anything to add to that? I mean,
no, I just agree with you. These people are idiots. They got stomped. They deserve to get stomped.
Oh, yeah, they got stomped. Yep. RSquared, anything? Same thing?
Nothing to add. It's a crime. Don't do it.
Yep. In legal booth, we shared a video on our page. 65-year-old lady getting tased by a police officer caused a major debate on the internet. My thing is as soon as she refused to give the officer what he asked for and she left the scene, I think all bets are off. I don't care how old you are. Nothing puts you above the law when you think you're going to take off in your vehicle. My feeling is that I don't care if she's 65. She deserved to get tased. And Ken, you're a defense attorney. I'm going to ask you because I know you defend people. And
no, look, this deals with appropriate force for the appropriate situation. She's 65 years old. They have her license plate. You can't outrun Motorola. You don't need to tase people. She was no threat to anybody.
Did you see the video, Ken?
Did I see the video? No.
Oh, then you got to hold on. See, I should have made sure you watched the video before. RSquared, were you able to watch the video of the lady?
I did watch the video.
What are your thoughts? Do you think she was wrong and deserved to get tased after seeing that video?
I would have shot her.
Oh, Jesus,
no,
really?
I'm kidding. No, I think. Here's the thing.
You'd only have 19 bullets left. That would be it.
No. Actually, it would have taken a few to take this one down. But anyway.
Yeah.
Look, here's the thing. If you watch the video, then the headline is 65-year-old woman gets tased, and it's all about the sensationalism of that to get people riled up again. But if you watch the video, it's the headline isn't 65-year-old woman gets tased. It's another crazy, dangerous acting. I won't say dangerous, but dangerous acting person who outright refuses to follow the simple and lawful instructions at a traffic stop. She closed her window. She did all kinds of things. The officers waited a long time. They used a lot of restraint before they did anything. Then she took off in a high-speed chase, which is a safety issue, and they eventually the video kind of cuts in and out. But
the other thing you forgot to mention is the fact is that she was pulled over 6 months prior for the same issue, and she never took care of the issue, and she had been riding around with this issue for 6 months too. That was the biggest part of it. Yep.
But I'm just talking about the safety issue there. And so if you look at her actions, I think you have to put her age aside. She was a feisty, physically capable person. I don't know if they knew her age at the time anyway. It wasn't obvious what her age was. She wasn't a youngin', but it wasn't obvious what her age was at the time because she refused to give her license and registration. I mean, they're pulling her over for a reason. They don't know what's going on. I thought they used a lot of restraint getting to that point. She got away with a lot of stuff, and this it wasn't like they put thousands of gigawatts through her. This was a fairly mild looking taser. She didn't lose consciousness. It was enough to subdue her where they're able to get her to relax so they can continue the thing. Nobody roughed her up. I mean, I thought the police did a good job on that. I'm sorry. I'm not.
I'm sorry. I have been tased as part of my training. We get tased as part of your training to understand what it goes. That thing freaking hurts. They tased me at the lowest setting. Let me tell you, it freaking hurts.
It's supposed to.
Okay, number one, this is a civil motor vehicle infraction. That's all. It was a ticket. It was like $80 or something like that. I'm sorry. Tasers are supposed to be used in lieu of deadly force. The idea is they bring in taser is this person is so dangerous, the police don't want to go near her. I think it's a taser instead.
I think leaving the scene after being pulled over, I think that automatically makes you a threat.
No, it doesn't. You're fine. Then what you do? You know where she's going to live. You walk there with a tow truck and you say, "Hi, I'm Officer So and So with the XYZ Police Department. We're seizing your vehicle. Have a nice life."
There's no authority to do that, but
yes, there is. If you. In all states, I know this because I know in Massachusetts, all states, the police can seize your car if you leave the scene of a traffic stop. They're allowed to do that because evading the police, even a civil motor vehicle infraction, is a felony.
I understand that, but they have to go up through the system to get approval for that. They have the ability to do it, but it's not something they can do instantaneously. But either way, I mean, Ken, watch the video before you have an opinion because you don't even know what transpired.
Well, I'm watching the video right now. I'm watching it right now.
So Mr. Defense Attorney, is kicking in.
She belongs to be charged with evading of failure to follow police instructions. But there's a big difference between that and getting tased. Okay? They
I have
clearly
no
had her
problem
out of
with
the
the
car.
taser.
What?
I said I have no sympathy for her. None.
No, again, it's just, this is the kind of thing that we had the arguments is why the problem is it's not a question of sympathy. What was the level of force necessary to effectuate the arrest? That's what the standard should be.
She kicked the cop off when he was trying to put the cop, and that's why. But that's why he tased her, because she was resisting and she kicked him off. And then he's like, "Okay, you give me no resort." He had his gun out. Now let's be honest. In that video, he did have his gun out. When she got back, and he did, and he changed. He went to the taser. So
I'm sorry, but if you're a police officer and you can't control a 65-year-old fat white woman, then maybe you need to choose another line of work.
Good debate here. I'm going to ask Johnny Knapp his thoughts, man. I don't know if he's seen the video, but I'm going to ask his thoughts from just hearing what we're talking about.
I'm just wondering if the defense attorney was hired by her, because it's
nice, Johnny Knapp.
That was good.
I didn't see the video, guys. I don't know. I'd have a hard time.
That was a great answer. Don't even worry. Don't even worry about it. That was a great answer. It was a shot right across the bow of Diesenhoff. So
we'll just leave it there. All right.
Let me just say this. Here's the thing. If the police had shot her or injured her in a significant way, all of us would be condemning their actions as entirely unnecessary and an unnecessary escalation of force. And that's I think there's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. In this particular case, my main point in why I think it was reasonable at the point that they did it to use the taser was it caused less injury to her than if they actually had to try to wrestle her to the ground to cuff her. She was going to cause a lot of injury maybe to herself, not the police, but to herself. I think by tasing her to subdue her caused her less injury than if they completed the arrest physically. That's my point and why I thought tasering was okay.
And you got to be careful, because let's just say you might actually choke her and you might actually end up without a job. As he's been fired from the force. He's lost his pension. And I believe this is going to open up a civil suit against him. Ken, by this happening, does this exonerate the police department from any type of lawsuit, financial lawsuit, or can they still be sued?
It doesn't. They can go forward, because the reason he was fired, he went through an internal NYPD disciplinary hearing. At that time, they found he violated numerous policies and procedures regarding the use of force within the NYPD. That being said, the NYPD can be sued for failure to properly train and supervise one of their officers.
Yep.
If they're smart, they'll settle quickly.
Yep.
RSquared, your thoughts?
They already did settle, I believe. They settled the case. They did that a while back, and it was a pretty big settlement. But they did that right away because they knew that they were liable. Whatever they do to the officer, they're still liable for his actions like that. So
they've already settled.
I want to say it was $5 million, but I'm not certain about that.
Okay.
Anything to add to that, Johnny Knapp? Or are you just rolling right along with us?
No, rolling right along. Personally, I'd love to talk about turning Fifth Avenue to Barack Obama Avenue, right in front of Trump Tower. I mean, if you guys want to change the subject, I'm all for it.
Well, we're coming in. We're coming into. We're getting ready to come into Trump troubles, but we have a new segment, weird-ish, as in SHI, but we can't say it, so weird-ish. Two things in this new segment, and I'm going to ask the guys if they find things that might be weird-ish. We are going to put it in there. First of all, we had the suicide of Jeffrey Epstein last week. That was big news, and now the news is coming out of your area down there, Palm Beach Jail, where he was serving time for a sex crime. Jeffrey Epstein was allowed to buy size 5 girls' panties. Look, we don't have to get into some discussion as to what he was doing with those panties. The problem is that he was in jail for a sex offense, and he was still allowed to buy panties from the commissary, and nobody questioned him. I'm going to ask RSquared real quick. Your thoughts on that one?
Is it weird? Damn right.
Toothpaste in the prisons.
You sure? You sure they don't sell that stuff in prison?
I know for a fact. You cannot buy certain types of toothpaste because of their granular nature. They can be used to formed into weapons or to things that cut bark.
Makes sense. Well, this is Palm Beach Jail.
The reason they don't want underwear is because they don't want with the elastics. They can turn that into slingshots.
Well, he was allowed to, and I don't. Yeah, so that's some weird-ish.
But yeah.
And you know, it's also very strange. In Palm Beach, they don't usually typically sell anything over a size 4. So size 5 is a little strange.
Man, Johnny Knapp just hitting him. Consistently hitting the strike zone. Man, just consistently hitting that strike zone. Not one ball yet. Also in weird-ish, Dr. Kellogg, who was famous for Kellogg's cereal, I don't know if anybody knew this, but when Dr. Kellogg introduced the now famous cornflakes back in 1894, Dr. Kellogg was not only a doctor, but he was a religious Seventh-day, what do they call it? Seventh-day Adventist.
Hey, I hate to burst your bubble, but he didn't invent the cornflake. His brother did, William Kellogg. John Kellogg was at the time, a very famous nutritionist and a proponent of exercise. He had the Kellogg Sanatorium in Battle Creek, Michigan. His brother, William, invented the cornflake. John created granola, what we call granola now.
Okay. Well, the story is back in 1894, cornflakes was invented to reduce the urge for excessive sexual intercourse and masturbation.
Yes, John Kellogg believed that sex was he was a lifelong celibate even though he was married. He did not believe in having sex at all.
I just find it very weird that cereal would be used to curb masturbation and sexual intercourse, excessive sexual intercourse from a religious perspective. I just think it's...
Well, the idea was, I can explain it to you because he actually lectured on it.
Go ahead.
He felt that there were certain foods that increased your hormonal level. He felt that an excess of alcohol and meats and certain fatty foods, fatty fishes, increased the hormonal level because that needs more to process it. Because that created increased heartbeat, which resulted in a higher hormonal level. So you wanted foods that would not increase your heartbeat or your hormonal level, like grains and granola and yogurt and stuff like that.
Well, I can tell you right now, I ate a lot of cornflakes when I was 14 and 15. I can tell you right now, it didn't curb shit because I was still in the bathroom with my dad outside knocking. So, all right, let's get into Trump troubles. We're going to get some stuff. I know we're going to get chimed in here. Johnny Knapp hanging out with us. And the visit to Pennsylvania, Trump claimed he is losing in the range of $3 billion to $5 billion to employees. Actually, where employees were actually showed up to visit or they were not going to get paid. RSquared, you were pretty pissed about this. You said this almost hindered on your new segment, Trump Lies, but it wasn't really a lie. Your thoughts on this one?
Well, there's two separate things. First, Trump makes the statement that he's losing billions of dollars every year by being president. That is an outright lie because, first of all, his businesses are being operated by, criminals 1, 2, and 3 on his behalf. And so,
I believe the term you're looking for is unindicted co-conspirator 1, 2, and 3.
Yes, exactly. And so they're making whatever money they were going to make anyway, and they're probably better at it than he was because he was unsuccessful. So, I don't know what kind of money he's losing. He's certainly exploiting his time in the White House to make a heck of a lot of extra money through emoluments and everything else. So that's just provably false and a silly thing to say anyway because no one asked him to be president. He wanted this job. But the other thing that was more important was the issue that came out from the union, which was the employees there were given the choice that, basically this was their mandatory place of duty, and if they didn't want to be there, they had to take a day off, use up a vacation day, or stay home without pay. So basically they were coerced to attending a political rally. Now, the other thing that adds to this, so first of all, that's just wrong. First of all, that's wrong from a political standpoint. As a leader, you should never do that. If you can't get a crowd, go someplace else. To force people to go to that thing is wrong. However, if it was legitimately an economic speech, I could almost see the validity in doing that because it was a chance to hear an economic speech, not a political event. However, Donald Trump, being Donald Trump, quickly went off script. He didn't even make it a minute, I think, and turned the whole thing into another one of his partisan campaign rallies like he did in New Hampshire and all the other rallies he's been doing in the past few months. And so it was not an economic policy speech by the president, by the White House. This was a campaign rally. And if you look at the content of it, it clearly was partisan and not an economic policy announcement. So on that end, that makes it inappropriate for them to be compelled to be there. It also should require And, I'm hoping the watchdog groups are going to follow up on this. When he goes to give an economic speech, that's paid for by we taxpayers. That's official business. He gets to fly. That's the advantage of being president. It's called the bully pulpit. He gets to fly anywhere in the country when he's on official business. As this became a campaign stop, his campaign needs to reimburse the United States Treasury for the cost of that trip, like he does when he takes other campaign trips, because the president always gets to use Air Force One, always has the Secret Service, always has the way that he has to travel. That's just necessary in today's world. But when it's a partisan political event, they have to reimburse the United States Treasury a determined amount of money. And in this case, the Treasury needs to get that money back. We'll never see it, of course, because the guy's a crook. No. He still owes El Paso over $500,000 from the first campaign rally, let alone this recent one he went down for. And he owes Washington, D.C. $1 million. So, he's running up bills all over the country and refusing to pay. So, that I think at some point there has to be a day of reckoning for that.
Johnny Knapp, anything to add to that?
No, man. I think Rob did a real good job explaining that. I'll take a seat to him, a back seat to Rob on that one. Good job. Ken, anything to add?
The only thing I can say is that defrauding the federal government has a 6-year statute of limitations.
Yeah. Yep.
No,
well, he's defrauding El Paso, defrauding Washington. He's defrauding more than the federal government. So let's see where,
So 6 years. So even if he does another 4, he could still be held accountable. Okay. Well, All right. President Trump ignored the advice. Oh, go ahead.
He wouldn't be held accountable for the 2 sealed indictments in the Southern District of New York. Am I correct in saying that if he is elected for another term? The statute of limitations would run out.
No, it would be stayed. It stayed because you can't indict the sitting president. Therefore, it stayed.
I agree with Ken. There's no definitive answer to that. I think the right answer and the proper judicial interpretation would be that it stayed, but there isn't. I don't believe there's an actual opinion that says it. Right. I do believe that's the correct answer, but I'm terrified that he's stacking the courts with people that will never let that happen.
Oh, he's definitely stacking the courts.
Oh, yeah.
But you need to understand when he loses in 2020. The knives come out, because the only reason that no one's shown up at his door with a pair of handcuffs and an arrest warrant and a blue windbreaker is because no one wants to set this kind of precedent of criminalizing divisive politics. But January 20th, 2021, all I can say is I would love to be on the sidelines when the FBI and the New York Attorney General's office show up and go, "Hey, Mr. Trump, how the freak are you doing? Would you mind coming with us, sir?"
Well, the Democrats better get their crap. In gear. So, another troubles. Go ahead.
I just wanted to jump in there. Scaramucci thinks that he's out come this March, and that would have Pence. Pence would then pardon him for any offenses. What do you think about that?
That's only a federal pardon. It does not affect state crimes.
That's true. Good point.
That's a good point. So, also, President Trump troubles. President Trump ignored the advice of his aides to back the Hong Kong protesters. For those who haven't heard, we've got this issue with the Hong Kong protesters are going on. We've got these tariffs in place, and he's been told that he should be backing the protesters. Again, Trump goes against what everybody tells him, and he does what he wants. RSquared, this was another one that really pissed you off. I'm going to let you get into that one also.
Every president throughout our history has said the right thing in a situation like this, except President 45. And when you have a situation like this, clearly the United States is not going to intercede on the protesters' behalf in a military fashion. That's not what this is about. But every president and congressional leadership has publicly offered, at least moral support, saying we stand with these people who are fighting for freedom and liberty, the same freedoms that we have in this country, the freedoms that we defend around the world, and they're entitled to them in China, and we stand with them in solidarity, or some statement to that effect. It's not hard. Any one of us could write it in 30 seconds, and that's it. That's all you say, and you move on. Instead, this president says, well, China could end this thing in 30 seconds if they wanted to, and I hope it works out well for China. Okay, that's a really smart thing to say. That's against 200 plus years of democracy and standing for freedom around the world. But this is Donald Trump. I didn't expect anything better.
And I'm going to ask you this one, too, the next one in Trump troubles, because this is a military issue. There was this whole thing about last week about North Korea testing missiles that they're not supposed to be testing, and Donald Trump didn't say anything about it. Then the following week, Russia tested missiles that they shouldn't have been testing. And in a strange way of how things work, this past weekend, the military tested missiles that they weren't supposed to be testing, but the ban has been, that treaty is now inactive, and now China and Russia are opening their eyes, and they're saying that this may start the whole arms race. I'm going to ask R-Squared on that one too, because we've been watching these missile launches. We've been talking about the politics of this from day one. When Donald Trump first came into office, the first thing he did was he ordered this attack, and then he also gave these admirals a blank check, and we had a guy drop a MOAB over and almost caused World War III because they thought it was a show of power. I mean, these type of reckless things. Your thoughts? You're the military guy. I'm going to ask this right to R-Squared.
Well, what you put out there, I think there are two issues which I'll give you my opinion on. Obviously, I do not support the way Trump approaches these issues. I think he's actively working against the interests of the United States, against the interest of our alliance, against the interest of our future. And I've said that many times on the show as well as on our blog. But specifically on these two issues, there's two main things, and then I'll stop so we can share here. But the first one is the United States pulled out of the treaty that is now leading to this testing. And on the surface, and we talked about this on the show, on the surface that didn't sound like a good thing to do, but there actually is some credence to it, because that treaty was a bilateral treaty that was only with then the Soviet Union, then that became a treaty with Russia. The problem is it didn't apply to China or anybody else, and the Chinese have been using and developing that missile technology. Forget North Korea, they've been doing it too. But China is a major military competitor of ours, geopolitical rival of ours, and they've been testing these missiles. So I think it almost makes sense to pull out of the treaty to hopefully negotiate a new one with everybody that's involved. Otherwise, China gets to do it, and Russia and the United States would not be, and that doesn't seem to make sense in today's geopolitical situation. More importantly, the North Korea thing is, we've talked about this a bunch of times on the show, is an absolute failure. And it's all based on this, ridiculous love affair between Trump and Kim, which just makes no sense whatsoever. But the president keeps saying how much he's solving the problem with North Korea, when the answer is not. According to the Pentagon, and they've released this. This isn't classified, or at least this statement is not classified because the Pentagon has released it. So the Pentagon, who he appointed the leadership of, has put out, and this comes from on behalf of the entire United States intelligence community, which is 17 agencies, have all confirmed that North Korea. Listen carefully. North Korea has expanded their missile program. They have built more missiles and more kinds of missiles, better quality missiles, since Trump took over in office. So his policy, his love affair policy with Kim, and I'm saying that because that's what he says. They fell in love. Those are his words. His failed summits with Kim Jong-un and this so-called great relationship they have has led to Kim Jong-un increasing, expanding, improving North Korea's missile technology to the absolute threat of the United States, Japan, South Korea, and a whole bunch of regional instability.
Holy Christ. And this is, and like I said, you've got this whole thing on. Ken just stepped away for a second. Johnny Knapp, anything you want to add to that?
Let's add Iran to North Korea. I mean, we're in worse shape there than we were just a few months ago, right? So,
right. Fastball down the middle.
Add them to that problem. Yep.
Yep. So we've got that stuff, and like I said, this is the stuff that we want to get out there, because we usually touch base on these things long before everybody else touches base on it. Again, you've heard me use the term Trump American, and a lot of people don't know this term that we've created here in the booth that we've come up with, Trump American. And I'm going to tell you right now, we finally have the perfect example of what a Trump American is. And I've been trying to get this out there for people to understand it. So here is the story. Donald Trump, our President Trump, was in New Hampshire. And he assumed that there was a protester at his rally in New Hampshire because he seen them ripping up signs. And Donald Trump wanted this person escorted out. He called him fat. He said he was in bad health. He needs to hit the exercise bench. Who's he to talk? He's not actually in a good state of health himself or shape-wise. But he obliterated this guy in front of this crowd, and they all enjoyed their laugh at this guy who everybody thought was a protester. Turns out that this gentleman is actually a Trump supporter. You would think that he would be pissed at the fact that Donald Trump assumed that he was a protester. You would think he would be pissed that he was thrown out of an event that he was there to support his candidate. You would think he would be pissed that Donald Trump made fun of his weight or his size or whatever. Nope. This guy was on TV the next day because Donald Trump called him and didn't really even apologize. He just acknowledged his mistake. And this guy said he will still be there to support Donald Trump in the 2020 election. He doesn't care at the fact that Donald Trump did what he did. Right there, my people, that is a Trump American. I can't say it any better. No matter what this guy does wrong, they don't see it, and they're going to continue to support this guy till the end. And that right there in the nutshell, like I said, if you need to see a picture or hear a story about what a Trump American is, that's it. Right there. Squared, I'm going to let you talk about that. I don't know if Ken's back yet, but.
Right here.
Squared, and then I'll let Ken, and then I'll let Johnny now.
I'll just go real quick so Ken can go at this. Look, this is, I think in a nutshell, the reality show issue that everybody's talking about, that the president is on one big ridiculous reality show and his Trump Americans, the people that made fun of on what really was national television, considering it was covered on all the networks.
Yeah.
And so he's like a local celebrity. That's this is probably the best thing that ever happened to him in his life, which is a sad commentary, but, he's obviously a loser, and to use Trump's words,
ouch!
That's what Trump would say, right? He likes to call people losers, and he was using all kinds of nasty language. He didn't even know the guy. We now know something about the guy, and I think the president's initial assessment was right. He's a loser, and so that's just the way it is. It's an awful reality show existence that we have right now, and I don't even think it dignifies anything else. I'll defer to Ken and John.
Well, this is clear. Again, as we said this before, as we said it pretty much on every show, Trump's head of a cult. And his people are going to follow him right off the cliff. They don't care what the facts are. He's the imperious leader. They'll agree to anything he says. And I'm sorry. I've seen this before in my practice when I deal with women who have been domestically abused. They never want to give up the abuser. And that's exactly what this is. Trump's got an abusive relationship with his base, and they love him for it. So I have no sympathy for this guy.
I find it scary. I just think it's scary. Go ahead, Johnny Knapp. It sounds like you were chiming in.
No, it wasn't. But I am curious. Is Trump's base the bottom, or is Trump's base his top? Usually the base is the bottom, right? That's as low as you can go, right?
Yeah,
is that as high as he can go at this point?
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
It's both. Yeah.
That's it. He's got nobody else.
Wow.
And he's not making an effort to go after anyone else. That's the interesting part. He's just playing to the base and no one else, and he's pissing off women and colored people. I mean, he's just pissing everyone off every day. So, except for his base, he plays to that base, and I don't understand who's telling him, who's whispering in his ear, saying, "Hey, this is the game plan. This is how you're going to win." I'm
no one is. That's
someone can
point.
help me with that.
No one is whispering in his ear to do these things. This is all him all the time, and it's been this way for 30 years. I've been following this guy's career for 30 years. I grew up in Jersey when he was on The Art of the Deal. Okay, nothing has changed. He doesn't listen to anyone. I've told the story before, and I'll tell it again. I went to law school with a guy, actually both RSquared and I, went to law school with a guy who wound up working for Skadden Arps. Skadden Arps was a law firm when Trump's first bankruptcy rolled around. They represented most of the major creditors. And they had what we call a committee of creditors meeting. And what that is you bring all your creditors in a Chapter 11 reorganization, and you sit down with the debtor, and you go over what assets they have and how they got a plan. Now, so they were there. The guy I was at law school with, he was there basically to take notes and get everyone coffee. He was a junior associate. And they asked Trump about his business dealings. This guy had no idea. There was no P&L, no spreadsheets. He couldn't even tell you how many people worked for him or what their salaries were. He had no idea. Okay? Now, when the meeting broke up, the senior partner of Scott Narp brought all of his people together, about 40 people together, and he said this. He said, whoever lent that guy a dime needs to be sterilized so he doesn't procreate more idiots. Okay? Now, if you're going to a creditors meeting, you make sure you have your ducks lined up in a row. He didn't care, and he still doesn't. That was 30 years ago. He doesn't care. He never wanted to be president. He wanted to run his own reality show, as RSquared said, and nothing has changed.
Yeah, I know Viana Marie, who's in the chat, she feels like sometimes that this is some big social experiment that somebody's going to pop up and be like, hey, okay, the experiment's over. You know?
Don't
and
laugh.
It does feel like that.
A number of my friends in the progressive left-wing side of politics have always maintained that this has been a giant secret plan of the liberal progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Trump is their Trojan horse. He's their Manchurian candidate. He wanted to blow things up so bad that we needed that people would vote for a real liberal progressive. And
well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see. That's pretty crazy stuff. So, hey, guys, we're at the top of the hour. We actually went a full 2 hours thanks to Mr. Johnny Knapp hanging out with us here on the show. Again, we want to mention some things that we got coming up. We got our Thursday night event going on every Thursday at Gigi's Lounge. I'll be performing at Prova with Viana Marie next Friday night to close it out. And we are coming up quickly on September 24th. We have actress Linnea Quigley. For those who don't remember who Linnea Quigley is, Return of the Living Dead and some of the craziest horror movies, Night of the Demons. She will be on this show because she will be here in Salem to celebrate Halloween, and she's going to be on this show on September 24th. So, again, I got to thank all these guys for coming on the show tonight. Our guest, Johnny Knapp, hanging out with us. And
thank you.
I'm going to let you say your goodbyes and shout-outs and whatever you have before we let you go, man. We can close out the show.
Well, I just want to say I had a great time. You guys are awesome, and if you ever need someone else on the show again, I'd love to be on again. It was a great time.
Well, you're a Jets fan, so we may have you on 2 more. You're a Jets fan, so we may have you on 2 more times.
Yeah, if they lose, you'll. Hey, John, come on the show. They've lost. Come on.
No. To be honest, we would probably bring you on before the matchup. So the Tuesday before we play against the Jets, we would probably have you on and give you your thoughts on the game, because we would rather have somebody who follows the team and knows the team to come on with us and break it down. When RSquared came on the show and I found out RSquared was a Giants fan, I'm like, nice. Now we're not just talking Patriots. We can talk about the Giants. Even though the Giants didn't do so good last year, the Giants still had some great stories in the media. They had the whole thing with OBJ was being let go. They had the whole thing with Barkley being drafted to that team, and he was following this team from the get-go when they drafted him. And, so we've been able to talk with RSquared and give us some insights and talk about the fact that we're all surprised that Eli Manning is still there and the fact that they've overpaid for our offensive lineman down there. But that's the type of stuff we like. And
I can give you tremendous insight. If you could get me a copy of the Spygate when they're taping that week.
Oh, my God.
The Jets practicing.
Here we go.
That would give us tremendous insight.
Here we go. Oh, it's always back to Spygate. Something that every team... Look,
that's all we have as Jet fans. Come on, man. Let us have that. That's all we have.
It is. And it was the... Well, here's the thing about Spygate. It was the most stupidest, silliest thing. And it was like, they take film from the field, from the highest point in the stadium. They were worried about end zone cameras when they look over game film from the cameras that are at the top that they're allowed to record everything above and beyond anyway. So it was like, this is the most stupidest. It was just horrible. It was just the most stupidest scandal I've ever seen.
Hey, Napster.
Yes, here we go.
Butt fumble.
Oh, yes! Thank you, Ken.
Listen, as a Jet fan, I have nothing to say. I got to keep my mouth shut.
I got one for you. I was actually at the game one year, and this was a great game. The Jets played the Patriots that year, and it was a big game. Why? Because the week before, You guys, the fans there, were throwing ice balls down. I think it was the Browns you guys played or the Steelers, and they were throwing ice balls at people on the field. So that game, the next game, they knew the Patriots was kind of a rival game. That game, there was no beer sales for that game. So you could only buy coffee and soda at this Jets game that night we were there. It was also the night where Joe Namath was there getting some type of award. He was bleep-faced, and he tried to kiss the announcer at that game. And it was also the game that Mike Vrabel was put in on Mike Vrabel was put in on offense, and he scored twice on the same play in that tight end position against the Jets. And I remember the Pats came back to win that game, and the place was absolutely dead quiet. It was just horrible. So I do remember that game as being one of the best Jets-Patriots games I've ever been able to attend. So,
well, it's easy to remember the games that the Patriots lost. I mean, you pretty much can count them on one hand, so that doesn't.
Well, actually, you guys, to be honest, the Jets did have a big win over the Pats one year that allowed you guys to get into the playoffs with a least better record. Remember that game? You guys beat the Pats. You guys made it into the playoffs.
What are you talking like Parcells or Rex time?
No, it was before. It was before Rex. It was before Rex Ryan.
Parcells.
It was. It wasn't. Was it? No. Was it? No. No. It wasn't Parcells. You guys made it to the playoffs or something, and it was just. I forget how it was, but you guys got the win over us, and it was one of those things where I knew it was going to stay forever etched in Patriots history. But since the dynasty has begun, you guys have been on the bitter end of a lot of things. I really felt for Jets fans, to be honest, when Rex Ryan was there. Rex Ryan was not the guy that was going to bring this team back. I felt Rex Ryan was a flash in the pan, and I felt that he was not that guy. So, Ken?
Parcells was the best coach we ever had, and we haven't had anything close since.
Yeah. Ken?
Yeah.
You want anything before we get out of here?
I'm good.
Squared, you said your goodbyes yet?
No, I thought we were still talking football, but if we're saying goodbyes...
Yeah, if you want to...
No, I'm done. You asked me if I said my goodbyes. No, because we were talking football.
Yeah, I mean, you guys had the Giants this week. Who do you have this week in preseason before we wrap this up real quick?
I don't remember, because the only thing I care about is Saquon Barkley not getting hurt.
Oh, that's right. Yep, that's right. We can't ask him that question because he wants to make sure his guys are. So, hey, everybody listen to the show. I want to thank you for tuning in and checking out the Facebook Live. Good stuff. We will be back here next week. And then Labor Day, we usually take the Tuesday off after Labor Day. I'm just going to confirm my guys right now real quick. I think we're going to be off for Labor Day because you're going away. Yeah, so Tuesday after Labor Day, guys, we will not be on. We will be back the following Tuesday after that. And we're going to go from there. And I'm just going to say, SpongeBob, do me a favor.
Well, see you next Tuesday.
Thanks for tuning into the booth at Whoobazoo.com. Please make sure to tune in for more booth next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. New York Eastern Standard Time. Become a fan on their Facebook page and check out their podcast on iTunes and iHeartRadio. The Booth is a Sinista One production hosted by Sinista One, Ken Diesel, and RSquared.
I've got to start hanging out with friends that are a little more intelligent and understand politics and stuff. It's just that I'm up on this level up here, and all my friends are down here. Me, nah. You guys, nah. Maybe a little more down in here. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Whoobazoo.com.